Welcome to Creative Thinking with Kim Thomas, a podcast from the Village Chapel in Nashville, Tennessee. Together we'll explore where faith and art meet and how creativity can draw us closer to the heart of God. Our hope is to inspire, inform, and encourage creative thinking from a biblical perspective. For show notes, resources, or to learn more about our ministry, visit thevillagechapel.com. Now, here's Kim.
In the last episode, we feasted on trust, resting in the reliability of God even when circumstances remain uncertain. Today, we return again to the practice of ceasing, and what we are gently laying down is our need to know everything. A man can accept what Christ has done without knowing how it works. Indeed, he certainly won't know how it works until he's accepted it. C.S. Lewis. Ever since the garden, we have been indiscriminate suckers for the enticement of omnipotence. God demands active faith. We seek irrefutable certainty. James Sennett. All the drywall patching and sanding was finally finished. Dust settled, primer dried, the work was complete, and now I had to choose a color. I had been avoiding this decision because I don't really like color on walls. I enjoy it in your house, but in mine, it makes me tired. Still, it seemed a shame to do all that work and leave the walls the same old white, like getting a haircut no one notices. White is what I like, though, and for a long time, I felt slightly insecure about that, until I read Georgia O'Keeffe's biography. She dressed only in black and white because color in her surroundings interfered with the colors she needed to see on her canvas. That made sense to me. I'm a painter too. Gallery walls are white for a reason. White is contemplative. So when my painter sent me to the paint store to choose a color, I went without anxiety. I was choosing white. When was the last time you went to a paint store? Each brand had its own display under color-correct lighting. Tiny squares fanned out in endless variations. What I thought was simply the absence of color turned out to be an entire universe of white choices. I said confidently, I'd like a can of white paint. And the man then led me to the whites section, where there were warm whites and cool whites. They were like teeth, waiting there just to be pulled, all those little cards. He finally suggested Contractor White, number 977. That should have been the end. But I couldn't leave it alone. I needed to know if there was a better white. So I came home with 6 quarts. Eggshell, antique lace, milk, parchment, pearl, linen. And none were the right white. So I went to another store and 3 more quarts. It's still nothing. My walls became a patchwork of wrong whites. Any one of them would have been fine, but in comparison, none of them were. Finally, I noticed a small section of wall that still held the original white. It felt like finding an old friend, familiar, safe, not too little, not too much. It was Contractor White, number 977. In the seduction of options, my senses had failed me. I couldn't accept what was right until I exhausted all the alternatives. Overthinking is a habit I've practiced well. Sometimes we just have to accept something without knowing everything about it. Knowledge and wisdom are good and prized in Scripture. But a relentless need to know often reveals a deeper need, and that is the need to control. That need traces all the way back to the garden. Adam and Eve were forbidden access to only one tree, not because knowledge itself was evil, but because obedience was at stake. As Derek Kidner notes, the trees were sacramental, physical means for a spiritual choice. Would they trust God to define good and evil, or would they reach for control? It was not so much what they ate, but that they ate. I know that same impulse lives in me. Paint is inconsequential, but overthinking God's grace, trying to understand it fully before trusting it, is not. Sometimes it must be enough that God says He loves me without my needing to analyze how. Or sometimes it must be enough that God says no without my needing to understand why. This is not a rejection of thoughtful faith. We are called to love God with our minds, but there are truths we must accept before we can understand them. Scripture reminds us that now we see dimly and only know in part. Yet even now, we are fully known. I may not understand the mysteries that trouble me, but I am not untethered in my unknowing. God holds me, and He knows. There are questions we are meant to wrestle with, and others we are meant to release. Only you will know when curiosity has crossed into control for you. But if you find yourself exhausted by doubt, desperate for certainty, you may be sitting at the base of that tree. And perhaps the voice you need to hear is not necessarily an answer, but a reminder. You are known, and I know. The voice of God, sometimes that's enough. As we walk the way of Lent, may we notice what is draining us and gently lay it down. Today, may you cease from what exhausts you and step nearer to the rest Christ freely gives.
We're so glad you joined us for Creative Thinking with Kim Thomas. If today's episode encouraged or inspired you, share it with friends or family, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. To explore more resources or to support our ministry, visit thevillagechapel.com.